All right, guys. So now we're running into what's considered the most advanced or more advanced gear, the newer gears, the ones that everybody typically wants to have, has had, or needs because you have to have them to build the next one. Um, let's dive into it. All right. So we're going to start off here with the Swallow, which we've already kind of gone over in the penetration video. This one's really good for attack, penetration, crit. We already went red pupil, ambition. This one is more so for the tear suppression and strengthen and weakening effect. That's why you would want to be using this. A lot of people are using it now because tear suppression is becoming a thing again. Fire spirit pants are a must have because of the trigger rate when it comes to your commanders that are one slot busting. So if you have a one slot bust commander, this is pretty much necessary. Or even still, you want this for commanders that have low trigger rates for a skill that's going to be devastating in its own right. Alkaid's penetration, attack, accuracy. The standard build right now, though, is going to be Tanlang, 2 Alkaids, Intaris, and Beetlejuice or Fire Spirit. And the reason for that is because they are typically the top advanced based gear that are going to be the most common. Antares gives you defense, HP, dodge. Once again, dodge doesn't really mean a thing, but there are going to be times to where you're fighting somebody who doesn't have a lot of accuracy, so that kind of plays into it. And then Beetlejuice, the most thing here is the total damage reduction, crit wither, and resistance weakening effect. And the two that you really bring from this one is damage reduction and the RWE. So moving on to the assault shield, you have attack, HP, and defense. This is going to be mostly used on the tank builds these days. You see it more on the lower end when you don't have Aldebaran, for example. I use it on Orochi for now. They're really good. The fact that you get some attack, you get HP and defense, it stacks. It really does stack. Meteor was the first gear that introduced total resistance. Resistance is where there is a debuff skill, and if you have at least some resistance, your chance of negating that debuff skill goes higher. So, for example, Kane's Vatican, that that special that special on that jewel set, if you have enough total resistance, or if you have total resistance at all on your commander, I've shown in previous videos that you have such a potential to, or your potential rises in terms of not having canes affect you. And that's because of resistance. So that's what that's for. It does give you HP and a negative 10%. I use this on Sister Wolf because I don't have a better jewelry for her, but at the same time, when you're using her more of a utility to combat the Reinhardts, Orochis, and the other ones that we've seen her be beneficial against, having some resistance does have a benefit to it. Lucky Not. Total damage reduction, skill trigger rate. A lot of people are using this on Orochi, and a lot of people are using this on Reinhardt. Reinhardt, why? Because one of his skills are the max skill trigger rate has been is on average, sorry, is 60%. Reinhardt has one of his skills that is very beneficial that is not, I think it's like 30% trigger rate. So having Lucky Knot, Fire Spirit Pants, you're raising that trigger rate. And then if you add the Apocalypse Hall, Armageddon, goodness gracious, Armageddon Hall, you're boosting that trigger rate even more. And which the more triggers, the better outcome you're going to have. Aldebaran. Again, this one is highly used on your defense HP comms because it gives penetration as well. The crit wither takes away a lot of that damage as well. Megress, total resistance. This is where you're building your total resistance build. So if I had Megress, I would probably put it on my Sister Wolf right now as a chess piece because the more resistance you have, the better chance you're going to have canes ignored, which means that I can use my plugin skill, which is Steam Cannon, and not have to wait an entire first round before I can use that steam cannon and hope I survive. Um, Regulus, this one has a special skill to it, which is Shield of Light. Kind of touched on this in the RWE video. Takes 40% damage from the first strike received in each round, which basically means if someone has Wings of Eternity or Gemini skill, this is the way I read it, they're going to, the first time they hit you, 40% damage reduction. The second time they hit you, they're going to hit you at 100% of what their damage is. Fomalhaut, true damage. 10% of the attack is not affected by damage reduction skill and is a must if you're combating Broken Fortress. The problem is it's only 10%. It only debuffs 10% of that damage reduction skill, which isn't necessarily enough. It's not a lot. It's better than nothing, but it's not a lot. Next, you have the Dim Light, Achilles Heel. If the current target is in a negative status, deal extra damage of 20% of the damage of the HP enemy's HP lost. This is going to be more on debuffing skills that, or comms with debuffing skills. That's where that Dim Light's going to play into effect and do extra damage. If they don't, if your commander doesn't have a debuffing skill, then you might as well just kind of ignore Achilles Heel because it's not going to boost anything there. That's how I read it. That's how I understand it. Barbarian Blood, Iron Wall. Damage taken, 20% damage taken. The lower the HP, the better the effect. The way I read this, and it gives you total resistance and tier suppression. So the way I read this is that if your commander's build, so how I have my Dragon Slayer, for example, where it's pretty much a one slot glass cannon buster, the less HP I have, that means that the 20% damage taken is going to have a better effect because the HP I have on my commander is less. If I had a Orochi where you're more, or a Reinhardt where you're more focused on, and I'm using airship a lot as examples because that's what I use, and I'm more expertised on is the airships. I digress. The more HP that you have on your build, the less effective that the Barbarian Blood special is going to be. So that kind of wraps it up to what I consider to be the base advanced gear. I know I'm using base and advanced in the same sentence, but they all have their own specifics that they have to build them. You have to get blueprints. Some of them are easier than others to get those blueprints. Like the Antares and Beetlejuice, you can get them from the world, or not the world shop, one of the star shop. Those are the two easiest ones to get the blueprints for. The other ones you have to get through events, or if you have the ether coins, to which are impossible to get anymore because they make it hard. The point is, one of these gears are going to be best for you. How you build it is going to be based on pretty much the norm of what the meta is. And right now, the meta is penetration or high HP and defense with penetration or damage reduction. Some of those do provide the resistance, which the Leviathan gives that additional hull, gives resistance. It's not a big enough number for it to really make a huge difference, but it does make a difference with all of these Kane's Vatican becoming a little bit more available for everybody, where it debuffs you and you can't use certain things on your commander build, which could be the difference in winning or losing. So keep watching. Next video, we're going to dive into some more of those more advanced ones.